Good afternoon, everybody. It's Saturday, August 8th, and today I want to show you all a way to restake a damaged tree. And in front of me right here, I have my beautiful lila avocado tree that was really damaged in Hurricane Isaias last week. It has been blown over, and it is kind of hanging on by its roots down here. And the roots are still embedded, but the tree has been pretty significantly damaged, so it needs to be staked. And I'll take you on a walk around on the tree, and I'll show you why that I can't simply leave it like this. It's really hanging down into the lawn, and the way it is, if I just let it grow without staking, it's going to take up a huge portion of the yard. So it really needs to be re-supported and to be fixed up. There are countless ways that you can restake a fallen tree, but there are two things that you need to make sure you do not do. You definitely do not want to drive any kind of stake or post through the heart of the root system of the tree, and you also don't want to use any kind of material to pull the trunk forward that is going to rub up against the trunk and damage the bark. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to try to erect a permanent installation that is not going to get damaged by the sun, because the sun can rot away fabric and things like that and cause the system to eventually fail. So I'm going to do this in two steps. I'm going to construct some kind of temporary bracing first, and then I'm going to construct a permanent bracing that will hopefully hold it until the tree can grow back in and reroot itself. So in order to temporarily brace this tree, I'm going to use this stretchy 24-inch bungee cord, and I'm going to use this to roughly pull the tree approximately where I want it to be. And in order to do that, I'm going to use this 5-foot post as some kind of support. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bungee cord and I'm going to wrap it around the tree in a place that is not going to damage the tree. And if I pull this bungee, I'm going to find out that I'm going to need the post to be right about here. And again, this is going to be the temporary location just so I can roughly keep it in place. So I'm going to drive this post into the ground here. And now that the temporary post is pulled into the ground, we're just going to pull the tree forward with the bungee, and we're going to provide enough tension just to get it to hold in position for a while. And that gets the tree close to where we want it to be. Now I'm going to have to erect the much heavier duty 8-foot T-post that will get driven much further into the ground behind this one. Alright, now I have the big T-post whacked into the ground, and it's in there at least 18 inches. It has to be embedded very deeply so it's nice and strong. Now I need to construct some type of tie wrap that I can wrap around the trunk of the tree that is not going to damage the tree every single time the wind blows. And this is really important. You can't use something metal or something that's made of wire to wrap around the tree, because every time the wind blows it's going to scuff up the trunk and it may eventually damage or kill the tree. So this right here that I'm going to use is an orange safety flag that I bought for about $2 at Home Depot. And the reason why I purchased this is because it has these grommeted ends right here that are sewn and woven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I'm going to simply cut this flag because I think this material right here is going to make a very strong tie to hold the trunk support up. So right here you'll see I have 2 grommets, and I think I'll be able to wrap this around the trunk like this and kind of use this as a brace to hold the tree in place. And then every single time the wind blows, this isn't going to damage the trunk. It's going to cradle it kind of like a basket. Now you'll also notice that I have a number of parts that are sitting out on my table right here. All of these little tiny parts, the steel cables, these little eyelets, I have them all linked in my Amazon storefront, and I use these parts to build trellises. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these parts and I'm going to stick this inside the eye. And once I have this little eyelet fed through here, I'm going to take this 1/8-inch stainless steel cable and I'm going to put this 1/8-inch cable clamp on the cable. So after I feed the clamp onto the cable, I'm going to feed the other end of the cable through the clamp, and then I'm going to squeeze this down into a very tight loop. and I'm going to attempt to tighten that loop around this eyelet. And this eyelet is going to help the cable maintain its shape. And you'll see now this eyelet is helping the cable maintain its shape very strongly. Then I'm going to take a pair of bolt cutters and I'm going to press this clamp on with medium tension. And doing so is going to hold this cable in place. Okay, now that we have our cable permanently hooked into this side of the flag, what I need to do is I need to feed this part through the eye hook of the turnbuckle, because I need to use the mechanical advantage of the turnbuckle by tightening these screws on the end to bring the tree in closer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these clamps and I'm going to feed these clamps onto the end of the stainless steel cable, and then I am going to pull this cable through the end of the turnbuckle, and then feed the other end of the stainless steel cable through the edges of the clamps, so they're pulled through and looped through. And what I want to do is I just want to make this so it's roughly hand tight, but I can still feed more slack through if need be. So I'm just going to very lightly tighten these screws on the end, and it'll all be clear to you why I do this once I get over to the tree. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our flag and we are going to wrap that around the tree trunk. And wrapping that around the tree trunk like so is what is going to provide the tension to safely wrap around that trunk without it damaging the trunk. And then the other end of this turnbuckle is going to feed through this hook, and when I tighten the turnbuckle, that is going to apply the tension that is going to continually pull the tree forward. And that is why I had to temporarily support it and pull the tree to as close to its final position as possible, because this turnbuckle is only going to provide enough leverage to maybe pull something like 6 inches of slack out of the tree. So it's not going to be able to pull the tree several feet forward. So I'm going to leave this turnbuckle hooked in there. Okay, and now that this piece of flag is wrapped around the tree trunk, I'm going to take this steel cable that I purposefully left very long, and I'm going to wrap it around this T-post. Then I'm going to pull it hand tight with the T-post until I can pull all of the slack out of this cable. And that right there is going to pull the tree significantly forward. And then I'm going to take these clamps that I placed on here and I'm going to tighten these, and that is going to hold everything in place. And here you can see how these clamps work. The nuts on the bottom provide the tension, so if you simply tighten those nuts, you will start applying a tremendous amount of tension that pinches the cables together, and it does not allow them to move. And the nice thing about using these types of clamps instead of those ferrule clamps that I pressed on with my bolt cutters is that these are actually removable. So now these have been tightened and it's not going anywhere, and this whole assembly is nice and strong. And now that the flag is holding things in place, we can undo our temporary bungee. And you may be asking yourself, well, why don't you just use the bungee to hold everything together in the first place? That's because the bungees are cheap, and I don't expect them to be able to hold the tree in place very long before the sun and the wind erode the very cheap bungee. I think this flag will hold up much better. But the one thing I do notice about this flag is it is a little bit balled up. So I'm going to pull the tree forward like this, and I'm going to make sure that that flag does not have any kinks in it, because I do not want it to rub against the tree. I want it to hold the tree in place safely without causing a lot of friction and peeling off that bark. So right now I think that looks pretty good, and we are simply going to continue to tighten this turnbuckle, and that is going to pull the tree forward, and it is going to get it into the position that we need. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a bunch of this excess cable, but there's a chance that these clamps will come loose, or I may need to continue to pull the tree and shift it as it continues to settle. So I want to cut this probably over a foot longer than it needs to be, because I want to maintain some slack in this line, just in case I need some leverage to pull this cable later. So I'm going to use my hardened cable cutters in order to cut this. And here you can see the final product. The avocado is back in just about the exact same position it was before the hurricane. It's tied up there pretty tight. The trunk is pretty straight, but I had it purposefully leaning slightly away from the house because I don't want it to grow into the house. I do want it to grow ever so slightly forward, but only on a very mild angle. So you can see right here how the airplane cable is holding the tree, and the tension in the turnbuckles appear to have worked perfectly. And because I used that bit of the plastic flag, I don't think it's going to cause a lot of trunk abrasion. So let's do a walk around to the tree. And overall, I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. It's certainly a million times better than it was immediately after the storm. Hopefully over the next 3 months or so that it settles back in and the roots grab hold again, because I can't leave that staking on there permanently. Avocados are not hardy in my climate. I'm only in zone 8A, and this is really a 9A tree, so I need to cover it and protect it with plant jackets and Christmas lights. So having the stake in the back with this stainless steel cable will make it hard to jacket the plant. So we're going to have to check in on this periodically, and hopefully it'll regain its footing and it'll continue to grow upright again. And here is what the root system of the tree looks like. I don't see any major roots that look uprooted here, just a few surface roots. So I made sure to go around and press down with my hands, and I'll probably follow up with my feet to make sure that everything is really well compacted under here, and that there are no voids, that there are no air pockets in the soil. And that's going to be important because we need this tree to settle back down to where it was before the storm. And there you have it, everybody. That is a way that you could easily, quickly, cheaply, and strongly re-support a tree that has been blown down in a storm. Everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please hit that like button, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe for future updates and more videos like these. If you're curious about anything that I use in my garden, everything that I use is linked in my Amazon storefront in the video description. Thank you all again so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.